Well, hello there, everybody. I am back with a blog post. Sorry, no posting last week. I was getting ready for my competition, so I didn't really train that week to speak of. So anyway, so I just want to bring you up to date. Just as kind of a spoiler, I did not get the numbers I wanted to get. I ended up winning the meet nonetheless, but didn't get the numbers I wanted to, and part of what makes powerlifting kind of fun, but also sometimes frustrating, is that uh, you're always left with wondering why you didn't do better and what you could do next time to do better, and so forth and so on. So that's kind of how I'm taking this. So my first squat here, my opening squat, was 330, and I'll let you watch this here. And this went about as it usually goes. I think I got 3 whites on that, maybe 1 red. I have my right knee does barely gets to enough flexion to get to a parallel squat, so sometimes I get red lighted on that right knee. So anyway, made that, came back for 363 on my second squat, which you'll see next, and I actually made this pretty well, to be honest. If you've been following my blog, you'll know that my knee has been kind of funky for the past 3 weeks, and I've not really been able to get the squatting in that I'd like to. It's nothing serious. It's just kind of an inflammatory thing. I tweaked it about a month ago, doing something, I don't even know what, and so my knee's been feeling just kind of tight. Although I didn't notice it in the competition at all. So, it is what it is. One thing that I always remind myself of, and this event reminded me of, is that, in powerlifting, if you've never done a powerlifting meet, it is just critical to get a good squat event, because if you come out of the squats with a miss, you just feel kind of demoralized. But if you make all 3 of your squats, your enthusiasm is really high going into the bench press. So if you've never done a meet and you're thinking about doing it, really do well on your squats, would be my advice. So here's the 363. You see me sitting down real low on that right side to kind of make the judges happy. So that went well, and that looked like there was 20 pounds to spare probably, but there wasn't. So my third attempt was 386. I was hoping that I would end up taking a 400 for a third attempt, but I just knew it wasn't in the cards. And one thing about my knee is my flexion is restricted from surgical scar tissue. So if I miss a squat, like you're going to see me do in a second here, and if I'm down there too long, I really don't know what would happen. I can't just sink into a deeper squat while the spotters pull me out. I don't have that option. I don't know if my knee would just kind of explode all over the place, or I really don't know what would happen, and I don't want to know. So that makes the squat kind of nerve-wracking for me. And you will see these guys were a little slow to take this off of me, but I ended up fine. So here's 386. Felt okay on my back, but I don't know. So I think the depth was okay, and I was just stapled, and that was a little longer than I wanted to kind of hang out down there, but I got out of it unscathed. So that was good. So now coming into the bench press, my first attempt was 231, which went real easy. I wasn't feeling demoralized or anything at this point, but I just my enthusiasm was not really the highest it could be. And in powerlifting, a big part of it is your meet preparation in the weeks and months prior to the meet, and then another probably equally big part of it is having the right mental and psychological and emotional climate during the meet. Because if it's not, you're going to undo all those weeks of training. So I don't think I did that well on this day in that department. I just don't, I wasn't feeling negative or anything like that, but I just was not feeling really amped. And part of that is, and I think one of the things I probably will do different next time, is I think this training cycle was a little too long. I think I make the mistake of thinking that the longer my training cycle is, the more time I have to get prepared, the stronger I can get. But in reality, after about 20 weeks, I'm just exhausted from the constant, intense training, and I think I think next time I'm more likely to do something in the neighborhood of a 14-week cycle, because about 14 weeks into this cycle I was still feeling pretty revved up and I was hitting good numbers. So next time around I'm going to do a shorter cycle, and so that's how I'll play this. This second attempt was 253, and this went up well, but I didn't have a whole lot to spare. One thing, if you notice, ordinarily they adjust the bar height for each individual lifter, and they chose not to do that this year because they wanted to save time, because if you have to adjust that bar height for every single lifter, it takes time. So they opted not to do that, and you can see that bar is really set too low for me. And I did have a handoff, but I never use handoffs in training, so not making an excuse, but that just wasn't the most optimal thing for me. But it does bring home what I always tell people, which is that if you've never done a powerlifting meet and you're getting ready for your first meet, you just really have to prepare for anything. You have to prepare for not getting the warm-ups you wanted. There's all sorts of things that can happen. So this was 264, which I did make once in training about 3 weeks ago, but didn't make it here, so missed my third attempt. That pretty much stapled me. I just didn't have anything for that one. And then as we go into the deadlifts, if you're following my blog, you know that I've been doing this deadlift cycle that was devised by Matt Kroc, and I still think it's a good cycle, but it didn't work for me. So this was my 407 deadlift, which is very, very easy, as they normally are. Yeah, that was super easy. And, you know, honestly, I didn't want less than 500 here. Honestly, I didn't want less than 507, which is the best I've done in a meet. So I opted for 518 for my second attempt. And I knew this would be my last attempt, make it or miss it. And that normally works well for me. I know that sounds like a huge jump, but in June I competed. I opened with 404, and then I went right to 507 and did great. So the risk of doing this is that if you take off too much, you're kind of done. But I really just didn't want anything less than this weight, so I decided to take this. This is the biggest attempt I've ever taken. Actually, this is a world record for my age and weight in the AAU Federation, so that kind of was fun. But I think I got the plates about 4 inches off the floor, and I'll be interested to watch this actually. This will kind of tell you where my sticking point in the deadlift is. It's very uncharacteristic for me to break something off the floor and then miss, but it did happen this time. I think technically everything was fine. So that was that. And I'm going to run out of video here, so I will see you next time with another post.